Where's Catherine? Are we good to go? I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll make a start, shall we? Before the evening gets too far ahead of ourselves. Good afternoon to everybody. Fáilteas Deachach Hallia na Cathrach Baile Clé. You're all very welcome to City Hall today. My name is Daithí Downey. I work for Dublin City Council. I'm here with my colleagues from the Community and Social Development Research section. And we're here today as part of the startup of our Inclusion and Integration Week 2021. We had a launch of that earlier today with Lord Mayor Alison Gilliland here, and we're absolutely delighted to continue the events throughout the day with the opening of this tremendous exhibition. More of that later. In the first instance, I just have to do 2 pieces of housekeeping, okay? In the unlikely event of a fire or any other reason why we have to vacate the building quickly, the egress is here. To my left, to your immediate right. Straight out that door, please, ladies and gentlemen. That's primarily it. I wanted to start, though, by welcoming Suzanne Bean. Suzanne, who you know, is the publisher and author of this book, this tremendous book, The Francis Street Photographer, about the story of John Walsh and his extraordinary life and the work he created through his photography. But I can't steal her thunder. She's got so much to say about that. I just have to say publicly we are honoured and deeply grateful to you for joining us for this week and allowing us to establish your exhibition here today. And we'll come back and talk about that a bit more. So to start with, may I introduce Suzanne Bean, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not used to the public speaking, so I'll just have a few little notes. So, firstly, I want to thank everybody that has come here this evening. It's an honour to be here with Senator and, of course, many special other people and Dublin City Council. The first thing my granddad would do if he was here would get his camera out, make you all stand up, and he would take your photograph. He'd move chairs, he'd change people around. That's what he did. He took photographs everywhere he went. Some of you probably know my granddad's name was John Walsh, and he was a photographer in the Liberties area of Dublin from around 1948 to 1999 when he passed away is when his archive, there's about 50-60 years of social history included in his archive. He took predominantly people of the Liberties, in all aspects of life, communions, confirmations, weddings, on the streets, in the pub, everywhere he went, he had his camera, no matter what it was. He developed the majority of his archive in his own dark room at number 50 Francis Street. So when my granddad passed away, he left behind an extensive archive. We feel there's about 250,000 negatives in boxes. So far to date, I have scanned about 50,000 of those negatives by myself, on my own. I started the process, the labour of love, when I was sick. I was recovering from surgery from cancer, and I decided I needed something to do to occupy myself, and I took one box down to my house, and one box led to 2 boxes, led to 10 boxes, led to where we are today. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's not over yet. There's still a lot more work to do. So as I said, the project is kind of really, we started a Facebook page and we put people up on Facebook, and people started to recognise their grannies, their granddads, their great-grannies, their great-granddads. And of course, in that archive, there was an amazing collection of people and members of the travelling community. And people keep asking me, how did members of the travelling community end up in your granddad's archive? Members of the travelling community were my granddad's customers. They were his friends. They came into his shop, my granny's shop, the Myra Dairy. They bought their shopping, they bought their messages. They were just an integral part of the community. Francis Street, of course, is in the Liberties, and you have the Ivy Market at the top of Francis Street. So many people, from all walks of life traded in the Ivy Market, came up and down the streets. There's an image over there of two young lads with a horse and cart. People would collect the spent hops from Guinnesses. There were so many reasons why members of the travelling community are in my granddad's archive, okay? In later life, in the 90s, he kind of became the official photographer to members of the travelling community. I think he has done everybody's wedding, everybody's christening, confirmation. They're all in there, okay? So when I started this project, my ultimate goal, of course, is to create a digital archive online that you can go and you can type in your name, your age, your year, and find your communion, find your confirmation photograph. That's my ultimate aim. And I would love somebody out there, maybe a secret millionaire is in the audience, but that's the aim, to get this archive online so that it's accessible for everybody in the community, no matter where you are, okay? So members of the travelling community, as I said, have always been in my granddad's archive. I grew up around the members of the travelling community. My mum worked in Labra Park. She worked for St. Joseph's Training Centre. I grew up just, knowing travellers. My mum is godmother to some traveller children. They were at my 21st birthday party. I've always welcomed and enjoyed, knowing, and as my mum worked with travellers, they're just part of my life and my granddad's as well, okay? And when I was asked to do a little talk, I had to think about what inclusion or exclusion meant for me. And 12 years ago, I moved to a village, being a Dub. I moved to a village in the country, and I moved to a Quaker village, okay? And if you don't know this, living in a tiny village, everybody knows what you do. Everybody knows when you go to the shop, go to the toilet, go whatever. Everybody knows everybody, okay? And being enthusiastic and moving to the country, and having lived in Dublin and been on many committees doing different things, I went to a meeting for a local festival, and I asked, could I be on the committee? And I was told, you're not from here, you can't be on the committee, okay? So that was year one. Year two, I tried again, and I went to somebody else, and I said, I'd love to help. We only let people from around here be on the committee. You're not a local. So even though I was there, I was willing to help, I was excluded because I wasn't from that area or wasn't from that place. This went on year after year. The tidy towns, every year I would drive by the little bridge in my village and look at the flower baskets never planted. And having a degree in horticulture and botany, I decided, I'll plant those flower baskets. I went into the tidy towns. No, we have somebody that does that. We don't need your help, okay? So year after year, I was excluded, okay? I didn't have to be a member of any ethnic minority. I didn't have to be from a different country. I just wasn't welcome because I wasn't from that village. So I decided I had to find something that nobody else could do that was different. And I realised our village had no Christmas tree. So I rang a local TD and I said, look, if I get a Christmas tree, will you give me some money? And he said, yeah, go get a Christmas tree. So I went and got a Christmas tree. I got my friends from Dublin to put the Christmas tree up in the village, okay? And all of the county councillors came to the turning on of the lights of that Christmas tree. But I put the biggest, shiniest blue balls on that Christmas tree, and the silver tinsel, and the dubs were there. It took a dub to get a Christmas tree in my village. And every year since, that Christmas tree goes up. So people are just afraid when you come in to do something that you're different. You're going to change their traditions. You're going to, you're not wanted. So never be afraid just to keep plotting away and trying, because even if you're not included, eventually you can get yourself included. So there's a few people that I want to thank today especially, and I want to thank the LCA, the Liberties Cultural Association, especially Noel Fleming, who's standing over there. And the Liberties Cultural Association are an amazing group of people, volunteers in the Liberties, And they do everything from historical walks, talks, everything. And they have taken an interest and supported this archive from day one. Every time they go somewhere, they tell people about my archive. They tell every TD, every county councillor, everybody they meet, you have to meet Suzanne and her archive. So I have to say thank you to Noel and James. But I also have to say a huge thank you to Mary from DCC, Mary Lynch, okay? Because several times before I have asked Dublin City Council to help me and I was told no. Several times before I've asked for funding and I was told no. So finally I found somebody who wanted to listen to me and took an interest and had the same passion that I had for getting these photographs out and shown to the people that need to see them. So Mary, I want to thank you immensely, okay? And lastly, I've waffled on a little bit, but as a family, the Walsh family, my granddad's daughters are sitting here and my dad and my uncle. We are so proud that my granddad is here beside the likes of O'Connell and everybody else in this magnificent building. He walked for 60 years around these streets with his camera. So it's absolutely amazing to be here tonight and to have his photographs on show. So thanks a million. I hope I haven't bored you. And Dahi, over to you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Inspiring words, and thank you for sharing them. And I had the pleasure and privilege of meeting John's daughters, Rita, Pauline, and Patricia earlier. And they were telling me some of the stories of how your father worked, and occasionally dinners would be missed as an ambulance was followed down the street to see, or a fire brigade from Dublin going a separate direction. And they mentioned his talent for reserving the untaken one or two photograph off the roll of 12 or 24 for the domestic moments. So a huge number of pictures of your aunts and your mammy in bed, eating dinner, doing ordinary things around the house, which is a beautiful archive, beautiful memory. And also, I'm struck by just how you've placed us, because we oftentimes just don't speak openly or honestly about discrimination and exclusion. And I think everybody has an experience at some level, but others have a daily, continuous, always there reality. And that's one of the things that we want to talk about this week, and one of the reasons why we're focusing especially on this exhibition today. And so I'm absolutely honoured and privileged to be able to introduce Senator Flynn to offer her reflections and observations on the exhibition. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Senator Arlene Flynn.
Firstly, Suzanne, I want to say to you that I have all the sympathy in the world for you around the small village. I'm living in a small village at the moment in Donegal, but I didn't even try to fit in. But when I became a senator, they approached me to turn on Christmas lights, and it was brilliant. I'd like to thank the community service within the County Council that invited me here today to launch this exhibition. And again, it was already highlighted, it's inclusion and integration, and it's so lovely to see photos and inclusion and recognition, which is most important, of our community, the traveller community. What I know of John Walsh's shop, it's actually very emotional to me, and especially only after having a baby 7 weeks ago, don't mind if I cry. My father used to drive past the shop, and he used to say, "In there, Eileen," he said, "that man," as if he was a criminal, "that man," he said, had a photo of me and your mother in that window," he said, "for years." And I said, "Did he, Daddy?" "Yeah." But I said, "Why didn't he get the photo?" "We never had the money," he said, "to get the photo." And now we've been working with John's granddaughter Suzanne and 3 daughters. One, Rita, that I know very well, who worked in Laborie, and it's such a small world. And Pauline, who works in the youth service, along with my twin sister, which is again a very small world. That is very possible for me to get those photos of my mother and father's wedding day. The photo that they couldn't get themselves, and it's just so lovely, and it shows a lovely story of the city as well. Not only did what I know of John Walsh, not only did he do work in Francis Street, the Liberties, and be part of a whole community. And if you want to say, John Walsh made an effort along with our community. He went out and into sites, and he used to come on to Laborie Park. He used to get out and get to know members of our community, which was very, very important. And these are not just photos of the 14-year-old girl getting married. These are photos of our history, of who we are as a community, and there's not enough about us in Ireland, in our history books, in museums, etc. And I think this exhibition should be not just here in Dublin, it should be put out to wider society. And, Suzanne, I think it would be powerful, especially for travellers and residents within the Liberties and the extended area, to be able to get photos of their confirmations and Holy Communions. My mother and father couldn't read nor write, and a lot of my aunties and uncles can't read and write, and that was from the lack of opportunities to be able to be in education and stuff, And for us, and I know for my family, photographs tell stories. And also for us is remembering our dead, remembering who we are as a community. Obviously, you wouldn't forget who you are as a community, but it's lovely to have the photos. And I think that it's not just about the black and white images and stuff. It's the real life stories. And even in some of them, you can see that while some of them are very happy photos, some people don't look very happy in other photos, And did you ever hear anybody saying a photo can speak 1,000 words? And looking at those photos, they can all speak 1,000 words, seeing families and trailers and stuff. And I won't get into, the inequalities in our society today that still exist for members of the traveller community. But what I think the message here today is do what John did. Get out and get to know members of our community, and get out and when we talk about inclusion and integration, we are part of Irish society, and we are an equal part of Irish society, and we play an equal role in Irish society if only we were given half the opportunity, And my big daddy, Lord Mercy Panham, used to always say, if travellers were, what he meant by clever enough, he meant if we got the opportunities, we'd run the Dáil. And we're one step forward in that sense, and just even getting our foot into the Dáil, if you want to say that. But it's if we were given the right opportunities and being an equal part of society by governments and all public life roles and jobs and equality of education and stuff, we would be able to be that equal part. And it's not about even being included or excluded or anything. It's just about that equality. And it's that equal access to be able to be treated with dignity and respect. We're not looking for special treatment. We're only looking to be treated with equal equality and respect. And again, I'd really want to thank the council, the community development side of the City Council for this opportunity today, and John's 3 daughters and granddaughters for inviting me here. And may his memory live on, and the memories of many of travellers that he filmed, took photos of over the years. And thank you so much. So it's officially launched, the exhibition. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Senator, and that was excellent. Really wonderful contribution. I'd just like to invite now our next speaker, who I'm sure is known to most of you, if not all of you, to the podium. This is Michael Collins of Pave, if you come up, John. And Martin, sorry, not Michael, I meant Michael. Slip of the tongue. I was talking to a Cork woman. Earlier, she slipped that in. Sorry. So anyhow, please to the podium. And we haven't had a chance to talk about what you wanted to say, but I know it's going to be good. Please.
Okay. Thanks very much, Dottie. It's great to be here this evening. And when I looked at the programme, I did see it was Michael Collins, all right. But at one level, I can understand that, because I think today a lot of Michael Collins' letters were handed over to the state. So probably Michael Collins is in everybody's mind. So you're forgiven. So yeah, look, it's great to be here, and I just want to acknowledge a few people. Obviously, John Walsh for having the foresight and taking whatever, I think 250,000, Suzanne, you said 250,000 photographs or negatives over the years. And, it's great that your effort, Suzanne, along with Dublin City Council and Mary Lynch here, have brought these to life, as it were, and to bring it to a wider audience. And I think that's really important, because it is our history, it is our story, and it needs to be told. And it's only part of the story, as we all know. Travellers in this room and travellers outside this room will tell you that our story has not been fully articulated, and our experience on the island of Ireland going back not just decades, but going back centuries. So this is a really important contribution to unveiling, or if you like, telling that story. So it's really important from that point of view. And as I say, I want to acknowledge the efforts of DCC and Mary Lynch in reaching out to Pavey Point. Mary contacted me a few weeks back in relation to this photographic exhibition. And of course, we were very enthusiastic, because it's really important that travellers are visible in events such as this, Social Inclusion Week, etc. And we all know very well, and certainly from lived experience, from my point of view and the other travellers in this room, that we all know the biggest barrier to inclusion and integration, and Dottie, you made reference to it, is discrimination, and it is racism, both at the individual level and at the institutional level. And you won't have inclusion and you won't have integration until we address that deeply embedded racism that exists in Irish society towards travellers and indeed other marginalised communities. So that has to be a key part of our strategy in terms of inclusion and integration, is addressing that racism. And this event here tonight is a really important contribution in that regard. There is another couple of historical connections here with this general area of that's known as the Liberties. In 1948, one of the most renowned and probably one of the best pipers that Ireland ever produced, Johnny Dorn, lived here in the Cornmarket area. And he was involved in a tragic accident where it was the 30th of January 1948 to be precise. And he was kneeling down to tie his shoelaces, and it was a very stormy, windy night. And a wall collapsed on top of him and his trailer. Some people call them caravans. I hate the term caravan, and especially when it comes from the mouth of a traveller. It's a trailer. And unfortunately, he sustained some serious injuries. And that was the beginning where his health progressively got worse. And 2 years later, he died. So there is that connection as well with one of the many musicians would argue one of the best pipers that this country ever produced. And of course, there is another historical connection in that the organisation I work for, Pavey Point Travel and Roma Centre, we started out in the Liberties, actually up in Meath Street, in a place called the Little Flower in 1985. We were known as Dublin Travellers Education and Development Group, subsequently, obviously, to come on as Pavey Point Travel and Roma Centre. And Anastasia Quigley, who was the chairperson of Pavey Point, was instrumental, along with her husband, John O'Connell, and of course, Ronnie Fay, in establishing what is Pavey Point Travel and Roma Centre. And of course, there's also a personal connection. It was the first time I had my first serious girlfriend. I met her here in the Liberties. Not that matters much to much people, but anyway. So just to say, it really is important that we continue and intensify, if you like, our efforts to ensure that travellers are included and visible and a part of events like this. And only a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of being over here in the civic offices, out in that nice green area, as part of Culture Night. We had an event there, and and Sheila was involved in that, and I think Maggie, I'm not quite sure, but Sheila was involved in that, and a few other women from Pavy Point, and we had a tinsmithing demonstration, and that's really important. But there's a broader question here as well, of course, and that is the ongoing visibility and inclusion of travellers in all of our cultural institutes, all of our museums, our art galleries, because by and large we are a mere footnote when it comes to history or historical books and indeed in these museums. So we need to continue with our efforts to make sure there's enhanced visibility and inclusion of travellers in our mainstream cultural institutes. Because while we do have a shared history and a shared lived experience between travellers and the majority population, it's important also to acknowledge that we, as the traveller community, have a very distinct experience and a very distinct history and a very distinct culture and identity. And that needs to be respected and that needs to be validated. And that's why I say we need to see more inclusion of travellers in events like this. And then finally, to finish, there was a really important development today. The National Museum of Ireland have actually advertised a 2-year post to recruit a person who would do precisely what I've just said, is to develop strategies and tools to promote traveller inclusion and visibility in our mainstream institutions. And for anybody who's interested in that, the closing date is the 19th of this month, November. So just to wrap up, again, I just want to acknowledge the efforts of Mary for reaching out to Pavy Point, John Walsh for taking those photographs and having the foresight all those years ago, and for Suzanne in her efforts in bringing this to fruition there this evening. So thank you very much for everybody for being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. It was excellent. It's a love thing, isn't it? The liberties. That's what you just told us. Love the liberties. And thank you very much. And it is my pleasure and privilege to be able to stand here in front of you and say these words today. I should mention Anastasia. I didn't recognize you behind the mask, Anastasia. Hello. And there's a number of other people here today that I need to thank, but we don't have enough time. But just to mention, I do want to thank especially Mary Lynch, you've mentioned already, Joy Aniola, who's here this morning as well, and everybody who's been involved in putting this whole thing together. And I need to officially recognise members of our elected councillors as well. Councillor, there you are, Cooney. Sorry, I couldn't see with that light, you see, that you'd moved, Councillor Cooney, and I think Councillor Tina McVeigh earlier as well. And there have been a number of people back and forth here today, and it's really important that it's this building that this exhibition is in, because it's all about, as you said, visibility and maintaining that. And we do have opportunities now as a council. In the next few years, we will be responsible for a new strategy, the implementation of it, the development of it, in particular on integration and interculturalism, and we have a lot more to do in that space than when we have achieved, although we start from a strong point, you might say, because we're collaborating, we're talking, but it's not enough. We have a lot more to do. But we want to end today on a positive note. Obviously, it's been a very positive afternoon. It's been lovely, actually, just to be able to do something like this. It's very different to the normal hustle and bustle, cut and thrust, and it's great to be doing it in person. So we were thinking, would it be nice to hear from the view of a member of the press whose profession and whose working career has been about photography, just what their view, what their response to this exhibition is. So I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Paul Sherwood, who you may have met earlier because he's been taking some photographs of you. And Paul is the president of the Press Association of Ireland, and he's just going to offer some moments of reflection in response to the work of John. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. Senator, ladies and gentlemen. As I was just introduced, I'm Paul Sherwood, President of the Press Photographers Association of Ireland. I've been asked to say a few words with regard to the opening of the Travelling Past photographic exhibition in this amazing space of the City Hall. And I was here a few months ago photographing a wedding, and it is just such a lovely venue. It's a photographer's dream, it really is. The exhibition gives a look into the travelling community's past through the lens of the Francis Street photographer John Walsh and his many great images. And as a photographer that grew up and started my career with black and white photography, I'm just loving all these images, and I personally am just such a fan of black and white. It's just great. I also saw the TV programme about his images and how Suzanne, his granddaughter, scanned and archived the images, which is a great feat considering the amount of time and effort required to complete that task. And as a photographer, I know what's involved in that process, so fair play to you, because it's a lot of hard work, it really is. The archiving and curating of such collections is very important, so that future generations have a lasting record of times gone by, as we now live in a world of phone photography and instant upload to social media and the internet. It's great to see that these images are both being exhibited and stored so they can be enjoyed for many years to come. The Press Photographers Association also exhibit and archive the contents of our yearly Press Photographer of the Year competition. The images go into DCU for storage, and also at the moment the PPAI is doing an ongoing project which is called the COVID Collection, taking in photos from the association's members all over the country. So we're going to produce an archive which will document the COVID pandemic in this country. I was also asked to mention the issue of copyright of images, which is an ongoing issue, and I believe that Suzanne has had a few problems in the past, people attempting to reproduce some of John Walsh's photographs without permission. So basically everybody needs to be very mindful that any image taken by a photographer, whoever it may be, is copyrighted, and that unauthorized use is covered by the Copyright Act of 2000. So nobody can take anyone else's image, basically. Thanks for inviting me. I've enjoyed having a look at the images on display, and I wish the exhibition every success, and well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Paul. Suzanne tells me there are 19 copies left. There were 20. This one's Slum Station. That one's for me. And time for a reprint, and we'll have a look at that as well, certainly. So we're wrapping up. It would be great to be able to have a proper reception, but COVID has taken this away from us. There's a small goodie bag with a little something in it, not much, but maybe just to quench your thirst and something as a bite on.
With your permission, I'd just like to say, because I think you remind me of it, because you're saying it's important to have more in exhibitions and galleries and things like that, that there's a launch of the Traveller Collective Catalogue in the Hoo Lane Gallery, the Mystical Gallery, on Thursday, with talk as well at 1 o'clock. So for anybody interested, so that's this Thursday.
Thank you, Councillor.
If you attend that event, I'll tell you how it turned out with my first serious girlfriend.
Episode 2. Episode 2, yeah. Yes. Now we're all coming along for that. But the plot thickens. Councillor, thank you very much for that. We will include that information on our website, so I'll just give that a little plug. If you go to the website, dublincittyinclusion.ie, you'll find all of the events that are happening this week. Some of them are in person that you can book and attend. Some of them are online, which will be live streamed, and some of them are pre-records, podcasts and video as well. All of the resources that we're curating and developing this week, including today, will be available through that website, copyrighted appropriately and protected appropriately as part of the archive. So it just falls to me to say thank you to everybody for being here and taking some time out this afternoon to come along, and to wish you a very, very pleasant evening, and we hope to see more of you. And thank you again. Gur maith maithagh.